On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, it was a huge weekend for the top four in the Premier League, with all sides picking up 3 points. We saw Arsenal batter West Ham 6-0 at the London Stadium in one of the largest away victories in Premier League history. We also saw City and Liverpool each pick up 3 points in their respective home fixtures, and United and Spurs each with their own late comebacks against Villa and Brighton. And finally, Sheffield United picking up that huge away victory, their first of the season, to kickstart Mission Impossible and give them a glimmer of hope of staying in the Prem next season. And as always, make sure you stick around towards the end of the episode for more rounds of the quiz, more rounds of Guess the Player for you to watch us play and to play along at home too.
Welcome back. That was Toby with the intro, and my name is Mevin. And as Toby said, there's only one place to start, and that has to be the London Stadium, as ironically, Arsenal hammered the Hammers 6-0. What a fantastic performance by Arsenal. And I'll be completely honest, I thought this was going to be a game that Arsenal may struggle in. It's all good beating your title rivals the week before in Liverpool 3-1 at home. What a fantastic result that was. But it doesn't matter if you can't back it up the following week. And Arsenal have a very poor record against West Ham as of late. They haven't beaten them since December of 2022. So coming into this game, I was a bit worried for Arsenal. But what a fool I was for thinking that, because they absolutely destroyed them. And in my opinion, this was a perfect performance. I couldn't fault Arsenal in any way whatsoever. Is that how you saw it as well, mate?
Yeah, I think this was a performance that I wasn't expecting it to be this good, really, and for West Ham to be this poor. They are a team that we have struggled against in recent years, and even this season we lost to them in the league previously, and we lost to them in the League Cup as well. So I was expecting a similar sort of fashion. I think West Ham are a side that can set up very, very well defensively and really, really punish you on the break. And the way that we play and the way that we have a high line with only a few defenders back is an area that West Ham could have potentially exploited. So I can't say I was particularly confident going into West Ham away, but I think almost from the first whistle you could see the hold that we had on this game, and you could see the space that West Ham were leaving in so many areas of the pitch. And I think that was what was key, and that you could see in this game is not only did we attack down the wing like we normally do through Saka and Martinelli, we also had a lot more attacks down the middle, an area where we have struggled a little bit this season. And Odegaard and Rice were absolutely superb in those areas. We had goals from set pieces. It was just a really, really complete performance from Arsenal, and completely exploited West Ham's number of weaknesses in this game.
Yeah, which is actually really weird, because going into the game, I didn't think West Ham had too many weaknesses, but just on the day, it was just the whole side just forgot how to defend from set pieces, from open play. They were a complete mess. They were a shambles. But I do want to start off by giving credit to Arsenal, because I think part of it was they made West Ham play like that. I mean, the fact that West Ham are well known, especially under David Moyes, to be incredibly good at set pieces, both attacking and defensively, and the fact that Arsenal completely dominated them. And I think it's something that we do need to point out at the set pieces, because ever since the winter break, I don't know what Arsenal did on that magical trip away to the Middle East, but they've come back and they've been absolutely phenomenal. I think at the first game back against Crystal Palace, they also dominated Crystal Palace in set pieces under Roy Hodgson, who, again, similar to West Ham, you'd expect to be really good at set pieces. And again, against West Ham on the weekend, it was just phenomenal to watch. And it just shows that, despite the fact that sometimes from open play in previous games that they have struggled to break teams down, that Arsenal have a number of ways to break them down. And credit to Declan Rice, because I was a bit skeptical when I first saw him on corners a few weeks ago. But the fact is that his delivery, wherever you want to put it, he can put it on a sixpence, and he does it to a T. But do you want to take it away with the first goal for Arsenal?
Yeah, I was 100% agreeing with you in terms of Rice, and it seemed strange to have him out of the box because he's such a good aerial threat. But even putting him on the corner, seeing the players that we have left on those chances, looking at Saliba, Gabriel, Havertz, Kivior, and I think just the number of players we have who have so much height, and Ben White, another player that I've missed there as well, I think it just puts so much doubt into the defending team's minds. They don't know whether to mark the space or the man, and I think that can throw a lot of confusion into the system, and it seems like it definitely did on this game. And it was a lovely delivery from Rice. literally pinpoint exactly where you want it, just past the keeper, where he's not going to come out. He's still wary of that front post, which you could see there was that hesitance from Areola, not too sure which way we were going to go. And it was just an easy finish because it was such a good delivery. And as you've said, having that in our locker, especially in a very close title race so far, is huge. And we've seen it all season, and we've seen it even in things like our throw-ins. There's this little routine that we do out on the right-hand side where it's normally White taking the throw, Saka does this run, and Odegaard goes right down to the touchline. And the amount of times I've seen that throw in go over all the defenders, and Odegaard has this little area of space where we can either win a corner, he can sometimes get a pullback in. It just shows, I think, how much is going into those training sessions, not only in our general play, but we've seen that those areas where we have time on the ball and we can really create something.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I actually saw it against Liverpool as well, because we played you twice, obviously, in the FA Cup and in the league very recently. And I noticed this as well, because every time I thought to myself, between Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk, how's Odegaard finding that ball every time? Why is he in that space every time? And it was really confusing to me. And I couldn't quite understand why no Liverpool defender could get anywhere near it. But it's just something I think teams going forward need to be keeping an eye on, because Arsenal are finding different and more creative ways to try and break a team down. I think it's fantastic to see. But there was nothing creative about the second goal for Arsenal, because it was a ball over the top, and I don't know what the West Ham defenders were doing. Saka was in acres of space, and Areola just took him down. And I think it was really poignant to see that Saka take the penalty and score, considering the fact he missed the penalty in the 2-2 draw at the end of last season when Arsenal going for that title run. And to see them score was something that, it really put the ghost of last season to bed, I think. And that just went to show, because then they scored 3 and 4, and at half time, you saw the pictures of West Ham fans exiting the stadium. And I'll be completely honest, if you're a hardworking fan who works Monday to Friday and then you go spend a lot of money to see a club on the weekend, I am not surprised that you want to do something better on your Sunday than watching your team get, absolutely run through the mud by this fantastic Arsenal side. And then in the second half, they just came out, and again, they were still fantastic. There was no response from West Ham. And then I'm running out of words to talk about how amazing Arsenal's performance was, because even in that second half, Toby, it was really good. And I just think it goes to show what Mikel Arteta has done to the side. They are becoming, dare I say it, mentality monsters.
Yeah, I think the fact we didn't take our foot off the gas in that second half is huge, because it could have been quite easy to pull Saka and Odegaard off at half time and just try and see the game out and take it easy. But we really kept going, and I think that's big, because not only is it going to be good for the players' confidence, but I think if we would have taken our foot off the gas, it's like extra training, essentially, extra match day experience, and that's something that we need. We need to keep this momentum up if we are going to be staying in that title race. And just kept going. I think at that time, West Ham in that second half just fell even flatter. There was no press, no intensity. I think they saw the game was over at that point, and it seems like any sort of team talk that happened at half-time was less constructive and more saying, what the hell was that in the first half, essentially, because there wasn't really much change in the second, and I think they just wanted the day to be over. And it ended 6-0 in the end. Couldn't have asked for much more. And now I think the questions are moving over to West Ham and David Moyes, it seems, after this performance.
Yeah, God. I mean, there were rumblings about David Moyes, have been for a while now. Ever since he won the Conference League, everyone, including West Ham fans, were extremely happy with his performance and the way the team played. But I think there is always an underlying feeling with David Moyes about, can these teams play better football? Can they play more attacking football? And can they work their way up the league? I think it is worrying that as soon as Lucas Paquetá is injured, the whole team kind of falls apart a little bit in terms of their style of play and their creativity. The fact that they haven't won a game this calendar year is worrying. And I do think to myself that there were games against the likes of Bristol City in the FA Cup, games which were very easy for West Ham, considering that they're 8th in the league. They're a very competent team. They have very good players. But I can understand it, and I can understand the growing resentment to an extent. However, I do have to say, despite the 6-0 loss to Arsenal, who were fantastic on the day, West Ham were poor, he is doing a good job. He is doing a good job at West Ham. Like I said, Conference League win, 8th in the league, in the round of 16 in the Europa League. what more do West Ham fans want? Maybe they want to be more of like a Brighton or an Aston Villa. And in that regard, I can understand it completely because they play really good attacking football. And Aston Villa, as we've seen, are challenging for the top four. They're giving it a serious push. So there has to be a point where I think with West Ham, with the amount of money that they spent on the squad, eventually they have to go for it. But Villa have no European football. Brighton last season, when they did really well, had no European football. I think this is the fourth successive season in which West Ham have had European football. So I think it's something to look out for. I don't think it's an issue at the moment. I don't think David Moyes should be getting the sack. Is that how you see it as well, or do you see it differently?
I completely agree, to be honest, mate. I think they would be crazy to not just to sack David Moyes, but to sack David Moyes at this moment in time. I think it's just a bit of a poor run of form. They have only won 2 games in their last 10 in all competitions, but I think that this spell will eventually pass and they'll get back to playing the way that we saw them at the start of the season when everyone was raving about how fantastic they were. And yes, the points that they do have in the league, the majority of them were coming from earlier in the season, but I still think the level that David Moyes has got them to, I don't think many other managers, whoever they bring in, will be able to do much better with the team and the club and the way that he has ran things. I think he's been fantastic. He has brought more of a level of consistency for West Ham over the last few years, and I think he has done a great job. And maybe we have to see how the rest of the season goes. If they can turn it around and get a good run of games going, maybe there could be question marks at the end of the season. If there is that manager that could take them up that notch, like you've said, someone like Unai Emery who clearly took Villa up that extra level. But I think for now, to even be thinking about it, I just don't think we can. It's just been one of those games where a lot of those question marks come in a huge loss like that. But I think we've got to look at the bigger picture, really.
Absolutely, I completely agree on that. There is so much more, of the season still to go, and I think the second mid-season, I think, would be a massive mistake. Maybe you can have a discussion at the end, depending on how well West Ham do in terms of the league and European competitions. But I think, and now I think it's just probably a bit silly and probably a bit reactionary on the back of what was a very, very bad defeat. But we should move on then to our second game, which is Aston Villa 1, Manchester United 2. And talking about Unai Emery, he's done a fantastic job with Aston Villa. And going into this game, this was a very highly anticipated game because if Aston Villa could win this game, they could go 11 points clear of Man United and put a bit of a gap between the two sides. However, Manchester United won the game, so they went 5 points closer to Aston Villa. And potentially, they're making a late charge for the Champions League places.
Yeah, this was a huge victory for United and one that I really felt they needed. They needed to perform in one of these big games and push their way back into that because the teams around them don't seem to be doing that as of late. Newcastle, Brighton, West Ham, as we have just mentioned, they're not picking up as many points as maybe we would have expected at times. So United can really take advantage of that. And in this game, they certainly did. I think the matchup for United in terms of Villa suits them exactly, really. I think we would have known that Villa are going to have a lot of the ball. They are going to play quite high-risk football at times, really getting men forward when they break. And I think United would have seen that to almost counter the counter-attacks that they are forming. That's the way that Ten Hag likes to play. He wants to win that ball when the opposition team is at their weakest, at their lowest numbers. And I think that's exactly what we saw in this game. Villa did probably dominate for most of the game and were unlucky to come away with no points. But United did really well, I think, in identifying those moments, when to attack, when to commit those men forward, and take those chances really well when they did come.
Absolutely. And I think it's been really interesting to see how Erik ten Hag's side has been changing in recent weeks, because now that they have a rough idea of what their best 11 is, and it is with Højlund up front, Rashford off the left, Garnacho off the right, and then midfield three, Fernandes, Kobe Mainoo, Casemiro, and obviously when everyone is fully fit, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Luke Shaw, that is the best team. And I think they haven't had it for so many games this season, and it's really been shown because they've had to chop and change, and they haven't been able to find the consistency. I mean, they've also had players completely out of form. I mean, not to mention Anthony, who are now at £80 million, who can't even find himself in the Man United side at the moment, ahead of the likes of Garnacho, who's a youth prospect, just goes to show. But I think, especially in this game, corners were a massive thing for Man United. And I think Gary Neville was talking about on commentary every single time. Kamara versus Harry Maguire was a complete and utter mismatch. And that's where the first goal came from, because every time Man United had a corner, it was always going to Harry Maguire every single time. And he ends up winning it for the first goal. And I think what's credit to Højlund is that he's had a rough start of the season, coming in with a lot of money, with a lot of pressure, being the main striker with Anthony Martial being out injured for the majority of the season. And he struggled in the first half of the season, but 4 goals in the last 4 games in Premier League. And he absolutely put it right between Martinez's leg. Placement was perfection. And if that was him earlier on in the season, he might have smashed it. He might have hit Martinez. But confidence is key. And he has that in abundance at the moment. And so did this Man United side.
Yeah, it really felt like a lapse in concentration, I think, that corner. Højlund ended up in that 6-yard box with nobody around him after that deft header from Maguire. And again, I think this is probably another area, like you've said, where they would have identified Villa's weakness. They don't have the tallest squad. They don't have many aerial sort of threats offensively or defensively. So I definitely think that would have been an area that Ten Hag would have tried to identify, get Maguire into that box and win those headers. Saying that, ironically, the way that Villa did eventually get their equaliser was from a bit of a scrappy corner and a bit of a lucky goal. But I think following that United goal, the way that Villa responded, they did deserve to get that goal no matter how it came. They did play really, really well in this game, Villa still. They created a number of chances. There were just times when they just couldn't either get the finish off, or there was a final touch or a final pass missing, as well as Onana having a really fantastic game, preventing a goal and a half from the post shot expected goals, 8 saves overall, and a really, really good performance. And one that we have seen building this season, and one that is starting to show the keeper that we expected when he signed from Milan.
Yeah, it's really funny to see, because he was a bit of a meme at the beginning of the season. People were saying, oh my God, what have they done? You shouldn't have replaced David De Gea. And now I think he's joined top, or at least one behind in terms of clean sheets. And imagine if he wins the Golden Glove after all the talk about him at the beginning of the season. It'd just be crazy. And of course, he went out to AFCON. He only missed the Newport County game in the FA Cup. So it's all weirdly worked out quite well, despite the fact there's been a lot of talk around him. And it just goes to show, consistency and game time is all you need sometimes. And I do agree. I think he's had a fantastic season so far. But another player who's had a fantastic season I want to talk about for Aston Villa is Leon Bailey. Because when Moussa Diaby came in for a lot of £50 million, I think it was, from Bayer Leverkusen, it seemed like Leon Bailey was going to be out of the side. But he absolutely dominated this game down the right-hand side, especially when Luke Shaw went off injured, which is another shame for Man United. Victor Lindelof came on, and they were just attacking complete down the right-hand side. And if you see the percentage areas on the pitch of where Aston Villa attacked, it is majority down that right-hand side, because Bailey had the number on Lindelof and then Luke Shaw prior every single time. And it's such a key battle for Man United. And I think one that they actually lost. But it's quite funny because Bailey down the right for Villa, Rashford down the left for Man United. I thought it was such a good game to watch, honestly. And I think Erik ten Hag summed it up perfectly at the end in his post-match interview when he said it was a bit of a tennis match, because I think it was. However, Villa will be extremely disappointed because of the fact that they couldn't go on and at least get a point out of this game. But to lose all 3 to a very late Scott McTominay header, and he's there again, isn't he, Toby?
That man, you can't rule him out when he comes on. You just got to put 3 or 4 players on him. I think at this point, he's United's top scorer in the Premier this season now with 7. Another late goal, a really, really well taken header as well, after a lovely cross from Dalot, and he just does it again. He is just that man. He's the new Fellaini, like back in the day at Everton. He's meant to be a midfielder. You just throw him on, chuck a ball in the box, and you're probably going to get a winner. And it felt harsh on Villa because I think they did play well, and that on another day I think they would have won this game. But also I think United in a way did deserve something as well. It was a good big game performance from them, and especially in terms of the league table, absolutely huge for them. 5 points off Villa now, slowly creeping into that potentially Champions League giving 5th place.
And it really helps the fact that they have no European football. Aston Villa, of course, have the Conference League show to come as well. But I just want to ask you, Toby, because I just saw it pop up on my phone. It apparently, Kamara came off the pitch in the second half because he's ruptured his ACL, which, if it is true, which is just reports from David Ornstein, it could be a massive blow for Villa. Of course, they've had a bit of trouble with injuries this season. I think Tyrone Mings as well, Emi Buendia. But if he is out for the remainder of the season, what a bigger miss is Kamara going to be for them?
Yeah, he is going to be a really, really big miss because he is the one that allows the other midfielders to press forward and charge forward as they do so quickly. When we see Luiz, we see McGinn bomb forward and crash the box. Kamara is always the one sitting and covering. And that's also not just the case for the midfielders as well. Anytime we see the fullbacks going forward, he's always dropping in either to left or right back, sometimes dropping in between the centre-backs when needed. He is the man, the work he does allows the other players to really flourish. And I'm not sure if there's any other player in that Aston Villa squad who can really replicate what he does. I think we may potentially obviously see Tielemans come in, who has played a number of times recently and performed really, really well, drop in a little bit and maybe play more of the Luiz role, with Luiz covering where Kamara was. But I just think it's going to really open up Villa's midfield, especially when they are throwing those men forward. I think the way that teams can transition against them is going to really, really increase. So it's a big worry for Villa, that, because he has been one of their key players this season.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they even let Leandro Dendoncker go on loan to Napoli in January. So obviously they couldn't have accounted for Kamara picking up an injury of this severity if the reports are true. But God, that seems like such a terrible move now, because they could have definitely used him. And like I said, if Luiz moves in a deeper role, not only are you losing Kamara, but you're losing Luiz in the area that he works best, which is going to be a massive shame. But Man United now 3 wins in a row in the Premier League. And let's see if they can get Champions League or not. A bit like Newcastle United, who are also chasing European football after a bit of a rocky winter period. They beat Nottingham Forest 3-2 at Nottingham Forest. And it was a bit of an end-to-end game, this, wasn't it? 3-2 on the day. And you know what? Newcastle, in the end, managed to get a win. But it's all thanks to Bruno Guimarães, because what a performance he put in on the day.
Yeah, we were talking about him last week and saying how good of an attacking performance he had, but he was maybe struggling on the defensive side. And I think in this game, again, it was exactly the same. His attacking performance was superb, really, really good. Absolute key player for Newcastle, and he has been all season. And this game was so strange. It didn't ever feel like there were any sort of clear-cut chances. Only 8 shots on target across the whole game, an XG of less than 2 across both teams, and it ended up being a 5-goal thriller. Both teams felt quite open. There was a lot of space for both teams to attack, and some really, really good finishing that ultimately led to all the goals that we saw. And I'm just going to throw this in there straight away because it's something I want to talk about instantly. That Awani penalty shout after Dubravka came sliding out, because for me, I feel like that decision was awful. I don't know how it ended up how it did, and I felt like Forest must be absolutely fuming, and I wanted to know what you thought of that.
I do agree. I think it was a penalty. I don't think it was a howler, though. I'll be honest. I've seen a lot of reaction, and I can completely understand it, because if that was Liverpool, I'd feel completely robbed. But I think it was a penalty. Like, if you ask me yes or no, yes, it's a penalty. I don't think it was a howler, because it's tough, because Awani was stumbling as well. The defender put in a bit of a challenge and knocked him off balance, and it's difficult to tell because he wasn't running smoothly. And obviously I've seen the still of Dubravka getting his hand over his ankle of Awani. I think it was a penalty, completely agree. I just don't think it was a howler of a mistake. I think it would, I guess if it is wrong, it is still a howler, isn't it? But I don't know. I think maybe the reaction to it has been over the top slightly, but I do think it was a penalty. I mean, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I felt like, I don't blame the ref particularly, because I think when you saw the first angle and the distance the ref was away, I don't blame him for not giving that, but I feel like those situations there is exactly what VAR is for. They could see the replay where the defender does put him off balance and Dubravka literally raises his arm and takes his leg out. And I don't know why they haven't suggested the ref goes and looks at it. It seems really, really strange for me. And I think I wanted to bring this up straight away and talk about it, because at the time it was 2-2. Forest can have that penalty, potentially score it, and I think probably go on to win the game. And the way that Forest are now sitting in the table, only on 21 points, they're only 2 points off of Everton in 18th. I just think we could look back at this decision and it have such a huge impact. And I feel like that's why VAR was brought in, for those decisions. But it just felt really, really harsh.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree. And I just do want to clarify. I don't think the on-field referee had a howler. because I can see why he didn't give it. But I do agree that VAR did have a howler, because I saw most of the reaction that I saw was saying, "Oh, the referees had a howler." No, I think referee fine, but that I do agree. VAR should have spotted that and should have given it, because we're going to talk about it later on as well in terms of the Luton and Sheffield United game. But I think VAR, it's getting to a point in the season, like you said with Nottingham Forest and where they're on the table, where Newcastle are trying to fight for European football, that referees need to be getting the decision right, because it could all depend on a point or two to decide the fate of these clubs. And that's something that we really need to sort out, because it was meant to make it more clearer. It's only become more confusing, and that's really, really not good. And it's kind of taken a bit of the shine away from the game, I think, definitely this season. But we should talk about the rest of the football. And I do want to say I got something right in our last week's episode, because I said that Dan Burn should not be starting this game, because I think after watching, I think it was either Ogbene. I think it was Ogbene rinse Dan Burn when Luton were playing Newcastle United last weekend. I said he's going to have a terrible time against Anthony Elanga. You need to play Tino Livramento. And of course, what happens? Dan Burn gets rinsed not once, not twice, 3, 4, 5 times in this game. And I said get Tino Livramento in. Eddie Howe gets asked the question afterwards. Obviously, he has to defend his player. But I just got to say, the Football Fellowship podcast, here for world-class predictions.
They've done it again. What can you say? It's just it's routine at this point, Mev. But yeah, it was again a player that I have highlighted in this game after you said it last week. It seems to be a player low on confidence. They're not. I just don't think. I think there's certain games that he will perform really well, Dan Burn, against maybe when they're playing in a slightly lower block. He's almost playing sometimes more as a centre-back when Trippier obviously is pushing up and overlapping and Dan Burn can squeeze in. But I think in this game, when you know they've got a number of fairly quick players, you're looking at Elanga, Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White, they're all pretty quick. And I just think that the way that Burn has been playing recently, you have got Livramento there. Just maybe put Livramento in, have a bit of a reassess and see how things go. And it did come back to bite Newcastle in this game with the 2 goals, especially the goal from Elanga, where it was a quick break from Gibbs-White. He played it through and it just went straight through the middle of the pitch. And you could see that Dan Burn was not going to end up anywhere near it. And I think if you do have Livramento in there, you are more covered. He's a little bit better two-way. He's a bit quicker. He's a lot more confident on the ball as well, I think, which is a huge thing. Dan Burn, I don't think, feels super comfortable playing out the back as much. He does have a much higher volume of clearances compared to someone like Livramento or like Trippier on the other side. But Newcastle were able to still get through this game despite those sort of defensive question marks. They did put up an efficient enough performance going forward. I wouldn't say it was creatively fantastic. They didn't create a number of chances. They had a decent share of the ball, but when they did have those chances, they took them, and I think that was the key point that got Newcastle 3 points this time.
Yeah, you mentioned it right at the beginning of this game. You mentioned Newcastle's XG. It was 0.48. For a side that scored 3 goals in this game, to have an XG that low is actually quite remarkable. I think obviously the first goal was very well taken by Bruno Guimarães. Trippier with that short corner and putting the cross into the back post, and it was completely unmarked. I think the goal by Fabian Schär just before half-time was a fantastic goal for a centre-back, and we've seen him so far this season. He scored 2 goals, I think, a couple of weeks ago as well. He's a fantastic at set pieces, and I think the Nottingham Forest defenders could maybe be disappointed because I think they're mainly ball watching, and I think, even the Newcastle players were ball watching as well, because I think everyone was expecting Bottom to head that towards goal. He headed across the box towards Fabian Schär, and he was the only one on the move. But I think that third pass was a just very, very sloppy goal to concede for Nottingham Forest. The fact that Bruno Guimarães just beats Morgan Gibbs-White to only just. Dan Burn, I think, blocks the midfielder so he can't get out to push him out to press Bruno Guimarães. And then I think the goalkeeper, I can't remember the goalkeeper's name. Can you remind me the goalkeeper's name, Toby?
It was their new goal. Is it Sells? It was his first home game, and yeah, he didn't have a great one.
No, he didn't. But I think that was one where maybe he should have saved. And now you're looking at it like Nottingham Forest got, I don't know, Vlachodimos, Turner and Sells. And are any of them the answer? I think that's the massive worry for Forest, because if they can get a goalkeeper who can keep the ball out of the net, I think that will go a long way to helping them stay in the league, because clearly they can score goals. I mean, the front four today was Awani, Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White and Anthony Langer, they're more than capable of scoring enough goals to keep you in the league. It's just the defence and the goalkeeper in particular.
And yeah, even in front of that goalkeeper, they have a number of good defenders. I really, really like Murillo. I think he is a fantastic player, and he's one to keep an eye on. I think in a season or two, I could definitely see one of the sort of the larger clubs, one of the clubs with a bit more money, picking him up. Just a few of those players in that defensive line, as well as the keeper. It does pose some question marks still over Forest, and as we said, they are creeping down towards that relegation zone. But if Forest would have listened to us and brought Keylor Navas back in again on loan, who knows what could have happened? It could have been another crazy prediction. But for now, I think they've just got to stick with Sells in goal. They've clearly signed him because they don't think the other two keepers are up to it. I think they've just got to give him the run of games for the end of the season, because I don't think it's really done any of the keepers chopping and changing. So I think they should just stick with him, see it out for now. I'm sure he'll be good enough, even if there are a few performances like this week where it hasn't quite been up to scratch.
I completely agree on Murillo, by the way. And the fact is, he's only 20 years old, and I think he's going to be... He doesn't look 20, first of all, which is what caught me off guard, which is when I realised his age. But he's definitely going to be a player for the future. And yes, Nottingham Forest are down the bottom, but two sides who are also down there with them are Luton Town and Sheffield United. And surprisingly, we were talking about it last week about this game being a massive game at the bottom of the table. But we kind of expected Luton Town to win this game. And the fact that Sheffield United surprised us and everyone else by winning 3-1, and it was away as well. It was at Kenilworth Road. What a fantastic performance by Sheffield United. But where on earth has this been all season?
Yeah, I don't think many people would have predicted that this weekend. Luton have only lost one of their last 9 games, and Sheffield United have only won one of their last 9 games. So complete opposite forms, a lot, especially at home for Luton. I think that was a huge thing, and I think a lot of people would have expected them to quite comfortably win this game, if we're being completely honest. But Sheffield United, they won that game in the first half. Cameron Archer, he scored a really nice goal, a great run breaking through the space where Luton were still pushing forward at the time. They did have the front foot probably, but Sheffield United saw that space. Cameron Archer took it really, really well after missing a good opportunity a few moments earlier. And then following that, they had the penalty and scored again. And I think going into that second half, 2-0 up, they saw that the opportunity was there, did the hard work in the first half, sit back in the second and just try their best to see the game out. And it was that, even that 20-minute spell in that first half, Sheffield United is the best they've played all season.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that was the best performance all season, arguably. I think maybe the one against Manchester City early on in the season where they just unfortunately missed out and didn't quite get the win because of, I think, Rodri's late goal. I think apart from that, even despite the fact that they lost the game, they played really well in that game. I think this has got to be the best performance. And also, we've been talking about Sheffield United the last few weeks. We've been saying, their attack, spearheaded by Brennan Diaz, has improved slightly. It does look more mobile, more like a goal threat, and it goes to show. But they did get a helping hand through VAR, both them and Luton Town, because for the first penalty from McAtee, I put my head, right, bit harsh, don't think it's a penalty. Second one, I just wrote, game's gone, because, my God, I think neither of them were penalties. Rob Edwards at the end, after his interview, he said neither of them were penalties, and I completely agree. And I just don't see where ball to hand has gone in the rule book anymore. It just seems like ball to hand isn't allowed anymore, which is such a shame because it gives the defenders no chance. And we've talked about it again on this podcast week after week. Defenders are standing off attackers with their hands behind their back. And when they're jumping as well, they're also putting hands behind the back. And it's just a natural position for your hand to be in. And I just thought to myself, it was just really, really bad officiating. And the fact that, especially McAtee's one for Sheffield United, no one was appealing for the handball. No one on either set of players was appealing for it. No one on the sidelines. And I'm just so disappointed because it does feel like it's ruining the beautiful game a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because I think that second penalty, I would 100% agree that should not be a penalty. But the way they were describing it in terms of the arms were above the shoulder adds a really big emphasis on whether or not it's given. And because those arms were above the shoulder, they gave it essentially. I think that was one of the key points why they did. And I don't know why that is a rule, really. I mean, if you're jumping, there's going to be situations where your arm is going to be above your shoulder, even if it's not sticking out very much. It seems they are going to give these. And like you've said, it just doesn't give any sort of leeway for defenders. It shouldn't be in place where defenders feel they have to have their hands behind the back, because that's just giving the attackers a huge advantage. It's going to be a lot more difficult for defenders to balance themselves, to get in the right position to block shots and crosses. And there was a moment in the City-Everton game, actually, where Tarkowski pulled off a amazing block, but he still had his hands behind his back, and the way he had to position his body to make that block, because he couldn't sort of throw himself forward with his arms still in a natural position, was just crazy. And it made the fact that he had to do that and still block it just made it even better of a block. But you shouldn't have to do that in the first place. It is worrying, and I think a lot of this has come because of reactions to penalties not given, where it has clearly hit in the arm, and the growth of social media, the way that VAR is set up in terms of screenshots and slowed down footage. When you do see a ball hit the hand, a lot of people are shouting handball straight away, without thinking of the context of the game, the position of the players, where the ball is going. And like you've said, it just feels like it's getting too many penalties given in the wrong situations. And I think the situational context of it is where it's key. And in both of these situations, I don't think there was any sort of danger of it preventing a goal scoring opportunity or a shot or a goal. So yeah, it's really strange, and like you've said, it does feel like it can kill the game and potentially give penalties in cases where they shouldn't be given.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's absolutely ruined the game, and I think a good thing is, I guess it's only in the top division of each league and in the and European competitions, so it hasn't necessarily ruined the lower divisions. But I have seen fans of teams who've come up to the Premier League and be like, right, I hate VAR, and I don't actually blame them. But in terms of the win, Sheffield United obviously level on points with Burnley after Burnley lost to Liverpool, 13 points. Not a great tally, completely honest, but they're 7 behind Luton Town now. Obviously, Luton have played a game less. Is there any chance, because I was writing them off last week, is there any chance after this result you've potentially changed your mind, Toby?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think Sheffield United and Burnley still haven't done enough so far this season. They are going to need an incredible run, I think, for the rest of the season to stay up. So for me, they are two definites to go down this season. It is just that third place, looking at Luton, Everton, obviously Forest are still down there. I think Crystal Palace are slowly sinking down there. So for me, it is just that third position is up for grabs now. I do still think Sheffield United and Burnley are destined to go down, unfortunately. How about yourself? How do you see things shaping up?
Yeah, I said last week. Well, I didn't say it. I implied, because I don't want to say it and then for it to be wrong. But it is essentially 99% guaranteed that I think Sheffield United are definitely down. I think Burnley maybe 98%, because I think they do play a lot better. They do score more goals than Sheffield United. They have a way of playing in which I can see them scoring. But I don't know if this is just because of the fact that I've saw Burnley last season, saw them absolutely romp the championship, do amazingly well, 100 points, score loads of goals, and part of me thinks that that Burnley side could do it again. But it's only 99% Sheffield United, 98% Burnley, so it's not even that much at all. But we should probably move higher up in the table with Spurs, who got a last-minute winner against Brighton to make it a 2-1 win on the day. And this was much needed because, again, Spurs going for the top 4, Brighton maybe outside contenders, but also wanting to secure European football for another consecutive season. But Spurs, they don't know when to quit, and they keep on going.
Yeah, it was that last half an hour, it felt like Spurs were giving Brighton the most space and opportunity for them to break and make some really good chances. And to be honest, I thought it was going to be Brighton, if any of the teams, to grab a winner in that game. It was into that second half, Spurs really dominated the first 20, 25 minutes of that half and were rewarded through that Sarr goal. And then things seemed to flip a little bit, and Brighton actually seemed like on the up. I think we saw Ange Postecoglou think, right, we can go in this game. We've done it before. Stick with that high risk, high reward. And I think it was going to be the high risk until that last 5 minutes where they keep going, Spurs. They do not give up. They do not change their system, and they do not settle. They went for it, and they were rewarded fantastically. And I think in a way, them going for that, it almost baited Brighton in a little bit too much. I think Brighton also sniffed that opportunity, as I saw it when I was watching the game, that there was a chance for Brighton to go and get a winner. And it got to the point where they were committing potentially too many men forward. And the way that Spurs scored, it was essentially almost only that Brighton back line who were really defending at the time. A lot of space for Son to work with, pick out a really nice cross into Johnson. And it did not seem like a winner you get at home when it's a draw. You would have expected Brighton to be sitting back and trying to protect that point away. But they got completely sucked in. Spurs took advantage of that and got the winner again.
Oh, I completely agree on that. I think you've nailed it on the head, because I remember as Spurs are counter-attacking for the winner, I'm just thinking to myself, right, I know it's, added time in the 90th minute and you're trying to get something out of the game or get 3 points or get more out of the game, but you still try and keep a hold of what you have. And I was so surprised at the lack of the amount of Brighton defenders who are at the back defending. And I just thought to myself, where are they all gone? This is far too easy. And even watching the game as a viewer, I got sucked into it. And I thought, okay, I almost forgot the fact that Brighton would draw in the game because they scored the penalty so early on. I was like, oh no, wait, they're drawing. They're just going to throw away the game as Spurs were counter-attacking. It was actually mental to see. But I think you're right. It's fair play to Spurs because they keep on going, they don't give up, and they get the rewards for it. And I think that credit has to be given to Ant Postecoglou, because as he's come in, he's had a style of play he wants to implement, and he's playing that no matter what. And they stick to their principles from minute 1 to minute 90 plus 6, I think, when Spurs scored. But it was Brighton who initially did take the lead, and I think it was actually fairly deserved. I think this is one where it was a penalty on Danny Welbeck. I think the defender did stamp on his foot, and I think it was very clever by Welbeck in the way he dragged the ball back and kind of left his foot there, but also he was using it for stability, and I think it was the right penalty. No complaints with the referee and VAR on this one, and it was a lovely penalty by Pascal Gross to put them 1-0 up. But it took Spurs till the 61st minute before they equalised, and it was through Pape Sarr of all people, one of the people you didn't expect to be on the score sheet. But how good is it to have him back from AFCON?
Yeah, he's been one of Spurs' players of the season, really. We didn't see much of him before the season, and he's come in, cemented himself into that first 11 and performed really, really well. He's a fantastic two-way player. He is very, very solid defensively, providing support for Basuma where needed, and he plays very, very well sort of around that 18-yard box and keeping the ball, moving on to those players you'd expect to be a bit more dangerous, your Madisons, Porro, Doji, those sorts of players, and he's a really good facilitator for them. But as you've said, this week, stepped up on his own, a lovely pass from Kulusevski and a really, really nice finish in the end. Once he obviously tried to play it across, Dunk blocked it off the post, and Sarr was able to put it in at quite a narrow angle to put it in the net in the end. And I think it was justified for Spurs to get that equaliser. I think they did deserve it in that second half. That first sort of 20 minutes, that second half, they were really, really good, and they did dominate proceedings. But across the whole game, it was a really strange game. I'm not sure who really deserved to get the win, if either. I think probably a draw maybe would have been fair overall on the way the game panned out. But both teams were really, really going for it. It was very end-to-end. A lot of space for those creative players, as I mentioned, for Spurs to get into, and as well for Brighton. Matoma was popping up in a lot of really good positions, as was Welbeck at times as well. And Fati, when he came on, he had a number of opportunities. And it seemed just like one of those games where both teams were going for it 100%, not worrying too much about what was behind them and just trying to drive into that space that was in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was one where going into the game, there were 9 points between the teams, and now there's 12, which is a massive, massive difference. And I think one where Spurs have definitely solidified themselves going forward as a Champions League contender. I think as well, having Heung-Min Son back. I mean, unfortunately for him, South Korea didn't win the Asia Cup, but I think Spurs are so glad to have him back because he's such a crucial player. And I think it's one where he's going to be crucial for them going forward from the left, because I do think that even though he didn't score in this game, Richarlison has been great for Spurs, especially in that front position, pressing the defence out of all their oppositions. And I think Son is going to go back to that left-hand side, and obviously that's where he got the goal from. But for Spurs, with Villa picking up a couple more injuries now, losing to Man United, do you see them as the firm favourites for the top four?
I can't say firm favourites, but if I did have to put my money on either of them at the moment, it probably would be Spurs. They seem to have still been able to perform really well despite missing Son, and even in that spell as well, where that Maddison was out injured, now they're sort of getting back into their full strength team. I think over the next sort of 6, 7, 8 game weeks where we are seeing Villa losing a few players, dropping off a little bit, I think the gap may start to increase potentially between the two. So I would say at the moment Spurs would potentially be favourites for top 4, but I still don't think we can rule Villa out and catching them up.
Agreed. And just like I think Spurs are firm favourites at the moment, you are definitely firm favourites in the quiz. Yes.
Hey.
Look at that. The segue is back and better than ever. Yes, you are destroying me at our Football Fellowship halftime quiz where we're doing guess the player. We're doing guess the player based on their former clubs, and secondly, guess the player based on their former teammates. Toby, what are the points?
It is currently 24 points to myself and 16 to you, Mevin. So it's a 8-point gap, which isn't too much. And the way things can go, if you can get a couple 5 and 4 pointers and I can struggle and get 1s or 2s, it can completely flip in an episode. So still a lot to play for.
Yes, absolutely. Thankfully, it's not as large as the difference between us in our fantasy football. You've had a pretty good week this week.
It was Gabriel again. What a man. He is on fire at the moment.
Oh, I know. Oh, God, I didn't have Saka. Did you have Bukayo Saka?
Of course.
Yeah, I didn't have any Arsenal forwards. I was really hoping that, because Saliba and Gabriel scored, that if Jared Bowen could just, score a goal, cancel out the clean sheet, but, it would just be really nice. But it didn't matter because Gabriel scored as well anyway. So
yeah, it was the Arsenal bias helping me in FPL. So
yeah, God, yeah. Anyway, on to more pressing matters. Talking about who wants to go first, Toby, because 8 points. Do you know what? Can I go first? Is that all right?
Of course you can, Mev. I like that confidence. That's what we want to hear.
Need to put a score on the board, put some pressure on.
Indeed. So, as always, 5 clubs, 1 mystery player. The earlier you get it, the more points you get. Estimate sort of around 30-second per club if we need to press for an answer. So, your first club for 5 points is Swansea.
Swansea City. What journeyman has been to Swansea City? Could be anyone, really. Well, not anyone, but I don't know
anyone
why.
Who's played for Swansea?
Yeah, anyone who's played for Swansea. I don't know why, but 2 players that come to mind are John Joe Shelby and Angel Rangel. And or maybe Carl Norton as well. I don't know why those players. Maybe Lucas Fabianski. He's the first one that came to mind. Let's go Angel Rangel.
It is not Angel Rangel, unfortunately.
I don't know where he came from.
That was a great shout. I love that. That's one of those forgotten Premier League players.
Yeah.
That's such a good shout. Your second club for 4 points is West Ham.
Oh, this feels like a path that could be trodden quite well. I was thinking about him earlier, but John Joe Shelby didn't play for West Ham, I don't think. Now I'm trying to think, of other players who play for both Swansea and West Ham. God, mine's not coming to much. Oh, who's that centre back? Alfie Mawson, but I think he was at Fulham, not West Ham. He had some terrible knee injury issues. Left backs, goalkeeper. Oh, it might. Do you know what? It could be Lucas Fabianski. Okay, Fabianski.
It's not Fabianski, but that's a good shout. He would obviously work for the both of them. I like that shout.
Yeah, okay.
Your third club for 3 points is Man City.
Oh, Man City. I feel like I should be getting this. 3 pretty well-known clubs. Man City. No, not Carlos Tevez. Didn't play for Swansea. Man City. Julian Lescott, Joe Hart, Zabaleta, Richards, Company, Clichy. Oh, God. Gareth Barry, no, not Milner. Oh God, oh, I think I might have got it. Is it Scott Sinclair?
It's not Scott Sinclair, unfortunately. He did play for City and Swansea. I'm not sure if he played for West Ham, but
I don't know. I just could see him in a kit. West Ham
good shout. Okay, your fourth club for 2 points is New York City.
God, for some reason this made it even harder now. Because obviously New York City owned by the same owners as Man City. He's gone out to New York, but also played.
I'll give you a clue. New York City is probably the only reason that he did play for City. Man City.
See, mine goes back to Scott Sinclair. Because he was definitely. I mean.
Any ideas? Any shouts?
I mean, the only reason he played for City, the only player that comes to mind, Man City, New York City, and he hasn't played for Swansea and West Ham, but I'm going to say him, is Jack Harrison.
It is not Jack Harrison, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the fifth and final club, and their most well-known club, I'm sure by a country mile, is Chelsea.
Chelsea. For Chelsea and Man City and so. Oh my god. Is it Frank Lampard?
It is Frank Lampard for a point. Well done, mate.
I was just like, as soon as it came to my head, I was like, oh my god, I was focusing too much on Swansea.
Yeah, he was there. I think it was a loan spell from West Ham, where he was obviously there quite a few seasons before going to Chelsea, and then on to New York, and then he had that brief loan spell at City where he scored against Chelsea.
Oh my days!
So a single point for yourself there, Mev, but a good point nonetheless.
Yeah, it's tough because he's one of those really well-known players you don't think about for something like this. But no, that is fair enough. I'll take the point. Are you ready for your guess a player then?
Oh, I am.
Okay, so for 5 points, your first club is Arsenal.
Arsenal, oh God, why have you put the pressure on me like that? So it's probably going to be their least known, so it's going to be someone obscure, I imagine. Any sort of players who played for us who are really obscure. Trying to think. Let's go for Andy Cole.
It is not Andy Cole. Not a bad shout. So, your second club for 4 points is Feyenoord.
Feyenoord. Oh, well, there's one that comes straight to mind, and that is Van Persie. But I don't think he's played for 5 clubs. I think he's played for United, Arsenal, Feyenoord, and a Turkish team, and then he went back to Feyenoord. So I'm not going to say him. Any other Dutch players for Arsenal that I can think of? I don't think it'll be Mark Overmars. I don't think he's ever played for Feyenoord either. Struggling here. Who else can we throw in here? No, I'm struggling. Let's go. I can't even think of a name to throw out.
I need a name, or you're going to pass.
Let's go Yossi Benayoun.
It is not Yossi Benayoun.
Nope.
Your third club for 3 points is Bolton Wanderers.
Bolton. Interesting. I don't think it's going to be Anelka, because I don't think he ever played for Feyenoord. I've just got it stuck in my head that they're Dutch now, and I feel like that's not a good route to go down. Bolton is. I'm thinking. I've got to think back in the day. I think they're probably going to be fairly decent. Oh, I am struggling with this. Bolton. Who could it be? Oh, could it be? Oh, I don't know if he would have been at Bolton, but I think he had a loan spell at Feyenoord. Reece Nelson?
It is not Reece Nelson. Your next club for 2 points is Wigan Athletic.
Wigan? Who is this? Arsenal, Wigan, Bolton, Feyenoord. Blimey. God, this is tough, you know. Wigan and Bolton. I'm trying to think back in there. And Feyenoord. God, I'm really struggling here. I'm trying to think of any. I don't think it'd be a goalie. Any fullbacks? Or centre backs? I'm thinking it's someone who started their career at Arsenal, or started in Arsenal and or Feyenoord, and then has moved on to Bolton and Wigan. But I'm struggling to get any sort of names.
I'm going to give you a clue because I thought you might struggle. So this is actually in order of their career path so far.
Damn, okay.
Feyenoord, Bolton and Wigan were all loans from parent club Arsenal.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, I'm struggling with this. Blimey. Oh, no, I'm struggling.
I'm going to have to push you.
Yeah, let's go. I have no idea. Nketiah. It's not him.
No, it's not Eddie Nketiah. So your last team for 1 point is Yokohama Marinos.
Oh my god, I was going to say him on the last one, I think, if it's who I think it is. I was going to say him because I remember he was at Bolton potentially. It's not going to be him now, but I was going to say this player on the last one. Is it Rio Miyachi?
It is Rio Miyachi.
Yeah. I was gonna say him only because I remember he played for Bolton for a bit, but I was gonna say it on the last one, so 1 point compared to 2 isn't too bad, and that's a pretty niche one, so I'm happy with a point there.
Yeah, I did think to myself that because the other clubs were a bit obscure, they were on loan, so I thought I should start off with Arsenal to make sure that it is someone of that caliber. But yeah, someone I just thought of randomly. But yeah, fair enough. 1 point.
Yeah, he's a bit of a cult player because he was absolutely rapid. I think is the only thing anyone knows about him.
Yeah, but he was great on FIFA, but not necessarily in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 1 point apiece. Should we do my guess the player by teammate?
Yes, that sounds good to me. So, I'm not too sure on the order just yet. I'm going to go for your first teammate for 5 points is Teddy Sheringham.
Okay, back in the day. So I've got Man United, Spurs, and I'll be honest, my knowledge at that time isn't great, so I don't know any other clubs. I think maybe Blackburn, but I'm not 100% sure whatsoever. So I'm going to stick with Man United and Spurs. Could it be someone from Man United? Who would have played for 5 different clubs? Let's go for Dwight York.
It is not Dwight York, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your second teammate for 4 points is Nani.
Nani. Okay, if I remember right, I think it was Sporting Lisbon, Man United, somewhere in Turkey, and was there anywhere else? I think there was in the Dutch league. It wasn't Ajax. I think it was PSV or Feyenoord. I don't know which one. I think, but someone who's Let's go for Cristiano Ronaldo.
It is not Mr. CR7.
Okay.
Your third teammate for 3 points is Samir Nasri.
Nasri, okay. Arsenal and Man City. Somewhere in France prior to Arsenal. Again, I think somewhere in Turkey at the end of his career. Someone who's potentially played with Nasri at Arsenal and Man City. Nani at Lisbon, Man United. Oh God, okay. I'm not sure where they would have played together in terms of Nani and this player, but let's... Oh no, hang on. I was going to say Tevez, but Tevez wouldn't have played with Sheringham. Maybe it's Spurs. Okay, let's... Oh, go on. Let's go for William Gallas.
It is not William Gallas. Unfortunately, your fourth teammate for 2 points is Buffon.
Buffon, okay.
I will just say as well, to give it, not to throw you off, but these are in chronological order as opposed to the sort of the last player being their most known. It's all in chronological order. So played with Sheringham first, then played with Nani, then Nasri, then Buffon.
Jesus, okay. Buffon. Jesus, I'm struggling here. I mean, I was thinking Carlos Tevez. Tevez with Nasri at City. Tevez with... Did he go to Juventus, maybe? Did he Sheringham Man United? No, oh no, the timelines don't add up.
I'm going to push you for an answer here, Mevin.
I don't know, Carlos Tevez.
And he's got it for 2 points.
Well God, is it actually... I was thinking Tevez was the last one.
Yeah, it was a tactical push because I know you wanted to say it. So it was Teddy Sheringham at West Ham.
Yeah. Okay.
Nani, obviously at United. Nasri at City. Buffon at Juve. And then my last one, I was struggling whether to give you a player from Boca Juniors or a player from Shanghai when he went there in China. So I went for Obafemi Martins in the end, just in case you knew that they obviously played together in China. So yeah, 2 points. A good score there.
Oh my God. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, definitely needed that help. I'll be kind to you on the next one, on yours as well, because this could be hard, but it should be easy depending on how you do it.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah,
okay.
Are you ready for yours?
Yep, let's go.
So the reason it came to mind for me is because your first player is Dwight York.
There we go. Okay, Dwight York. He played for Villa. He obviously played for United. I think... Did he ever play for Newcastle? No, it's Andy Cole used to play for Newcastle. So I think the only ones I know for York are Villa and United. So that United squad, probably late 90s, early 2000s. David Beckham.
Oh, I can't believe it. It's right.
Is it fine? Yes, get in. That's huge.
What's the point of me doing all that research and getting up a whole quiz for you to do and just guess it on the first one? What's the point?
You know what? To be honest, the only reason I guessed it is because I almost did him for you.
Oh, great! The convenience of that. Isn't it? God,
so he was in the brain somewhere.
Oh, go away. Oh dear, what was the point? Right.
Huge. We take it.
5. Oh no, I mean it's your jammy 5 pointers is the reason why you're winning.
It is jammy. If you get a 4 pointer, I feel like that's a bit of skill. A 5 pointer it's just pure luck.
Yeah. Well, at the end, to be fair, if you do it consistently like you have done, I guess there is some sort of skill to it. Just ball knowledge is something different.
Yeah, built different, mate. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, you guessed a Man United player from the right era who's also played for at least 5 different clubs. There is a little bit of skill to it, so I am being a bit harsh on you. Well played.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you. Who are the other teammates?
Oh God, I'll just put that away. It was So then you had Robbie Keane for LA Galaxy.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Then you would have had Andrei Shevchenko for AC Milan. Then you would have had Lucas Moura for PSG.
That's a good one.
And then you would have had Iker Casillas for Real Madrid.
I reckon if you would have thrown any others of those,
I was thinking maybe like a cheeky Wes Brown, John O'Shea.
If you would have put any of the other teammates you had on your list before Dwight York, I'm not sure if I would have got Beckham straight away. I don't know. Yeah,
you think? Yeah, maybe.
So thanks for that, mate. I appreciate it.
Or maybe you should have gone Robbie Keane first to put the doubt.
Yeah, because he's got a number of clubs, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got 11 different clubs, 7 in English football, 1 in Celtic, and then 3 others elsewhere. LA Galaxy, and then Inter and someone else. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, we take it. That gives me an 11-point lead now, 30 points to 19.
Oh,
so I'm happy. A good episode, a great episode.
Great. Arsenal win 6-0. You do amazingly in the quiz.
Yep.
What more? I just bring you joy, don't I, Toby?
Oh, you do, Mev. You do.
Oh, dear.
What a treat.
Yes, thankfully Liverpool won as well, which gave me a lot of joy in the weekend as they beat Burnley 3-1. And it wasn't the easiest of games for Liverpool, despite the fact that they did get the 3 points. Burnley did put up a good fight, but Liverpool ultimately were too good for Burnley on the day. Do have to mention, did you see the second goal for Liverpool and the shouts for a free kick in the build-up?
I did, and it was a really strange one because to be honest, I probably thought it would be a free kick, but I think the way McAllister sort of went down like he'd hurt himself doing it, I think made the referee not give it. So I'm quite surprised it wasn't actually pulled up, to be honest. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought myself as soon as I saw it on the replay that that's going to be pulled back because McAllister hurt himself by kicking the Burnley player, and he's done well by staying on his feet, but he's initially been punished for being honest because it didn't hurt him. He was fine, but if he went down, that's a foul. That's 100% a foul. So it's just really confusing, and I do have some sympathy for Vincent Kompany because obviously at the time I was like, Liverpool need this goal, Burnley actually doing all right, please don't give it. But I was just afterwards, as soon as the game's over, I was like, do you know what, we got away with one there because 100% that's a foul.
Yeah, Burnley were able to create a few good chances in this game as well. Fofana had a couple misses. They had another chance sort of later on in the game. So if that goal had been pulled back, 1-1 obviously at the time, Liverpool were sort of dominating possession and creating good chances for themselves, but it definitely would have given Burnley hope and they could have got more out of this game than they ultimately did.
Yeah, Liverpool really struggled in this game, especially in that first half. It's very much second half FC at the moment in recent games. But I think, they had no Alisson because he's suffering from a bug. Joe Gomez, who's debuting at left back as third choice, he also picked up the same bug. You had no Konate because he's suspended against the Arsenal game. So you had Quantin. Trent Alexander-Arnold had a bug, so he got pulled off at halftime. So Curtis Jones was playing right back. You had no Salah. It was just very depleted, and I think you could see from that performance on the pitch, a side that was kind of struggling a little bit. But to get 3 points at the end of it is all that matters. And to bounce back, no matter how well or not you do bounce back, they did bounce back, got the 3 points. And unlucky for Burnley, but thankfully for them, Luton lost, Everton lost, Nottingham Forest lost, and Crystal Palace played tonight as we're recording against Chelsea, so hopefully they lose as well. So still got a bit of a chance. But let's move on to Fulham 3, Bournemouth 1. And Fulham, this was a game between the sides who were 12th and 13th in the league. And this one, it happened to be Fulham's.
Yeah, two teams who are performing pretty decently, I think it's fair to say. Getting to a point where they are going to be comfortably mid-table, I think. I don't think either team is going to get sucked into that relegation battle. But I do still think they don't have the quality of maybe the teams above them, looking at sort of your Wolves, Chelsea, Brighton, those sorts of teams. So decent teams, and I think a decent performance from both of them. And I think the key turning point in this game was when Fulham got that third goal. They were obviously 2-0 up. Bournemouth then scored from the corner, a really nice finish from Senesi. And straight away, Fulham went up the other end. Willian with a lovely cross into the back stick for Muniz' second goal. And I think if they don't get that goal then, Bournemouth could definitely start creeping into that game. So it was really, really good spirit, really good ambition for them to go straight up the other end and ultimately put the game to bed.
Yeah, and I think Willian, the fact that he's still doing it. He was playing for Chelsea, then moved to Arsenal, then in part of that Arteta rebuild, he got shipped away, came back to the Premier League, and is still delivering on a consistent basis. I think fair play to him at his age. I think also shout out to Muniz, who came back on loan to Fulham, and after Raul Jimenez had a decent first half of the season, Fulham also signed Armando Broja on loan from Chelsea, which I did recommend on our transfer video. Surprising that pulled off, but not really, because we know what we're talking about. But the fact that he's been able to start up front for Fulham, he got a goal last weekend, got two today. I think Muniz again. It just goes to show that Fulham, despite sometimes they don't have the biggest names, the quality of the players and consistency, most importantly, is really good. For Bournemouth, a bit of a tough day in front of goal. Do you agree, Toby? I think 25 shots, 12 blocked, 9 off target, only 4 on target in the whole game. They didn't have a great game in front of goal, but they did create a lot of chances.
Yeah, they created a very high volume of chances, a lot of shots taken, maybe not sort of the most high quality chances, but I think a lot of that was down to Fulham's defence. They performed really, really well in this game. They suffocated Solanke as much as they could, and they really restricted Bournemouth's chance creation. So, an away performance, I think, for Bournemouth to be able to not be as effective as they have been in recent home games, and Fulham to put up a good defensive performance, I don't think they can be too disappointed. But no worrying signs, I think, for either team at the moment, and Bournemouth, I think, will be able to bounce back fairly easily next game.
Yeah, we've been very impressed with Bournemouth so far this season. They haven't won a game in the last 5, but I think it is a run that a team can go on, especially when they're middle of the table, that they go over the course of a season. But for Manchester City, as they beat Everton 2-0, no such worries, despite the fact that Everton actually played, in my opinion, with a better team for 70 minutes up until Haaland's goal. And it's that man again, Kevin De Bruyne. He didn't start this game, but as soon as he comes off the pitch, you kind of had a sinking feeling that Man City, they're going to do it again. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that first half, I was thinking that Everton can really get something out of this game. They defended fantastically well. Branthwaite and Tarkowski, I think, were exceptional in that first half. Really restricted Haaland in the space that he had. And their midfield worked really, really well as well to prevent anything coming centrally. There was a lot of sort of play out wide that was just too slow from City. They weren't able to get into any particularly dangerous positions, and it seemed like at times if Everton maybe had one pass a little better, if Calvert-Lewin could just hold the ball up for half a second longer, they could have nabbed something. And it seemed like the game was slowly sort of easing out until, as you said, the change, I think De Bruyne and Walker both coming on really stretched the game. City were able to get a fairly lucky goal, I think, the ball falling from a corner, and then from then onwards, they completely changed. Everton had to open up. City found a lot more space, created a number of chances in that last sort of 15, 20 minutes, and did well, I think, to get a result in a game where Everton defended fantastically well, and maybe at times City just weren't at their best.
Yeah, I think that first goal was quite lucky for City. I think you can maybe argue from the perspective of Haaland, got to be right place, right time. I think from the Everton's perspective, the main goal threat being completely free in the box, I think is a massive blunder on their part. I think a couple of defenders get too attracted to the ball when they do have a bit of a scrummage near the 6-yard area, and I think Haaland's left free, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. But I think for the second goal, I do want to say, Jared Branthwaite, he has been phenomenal this season. 21 years of age, coming to this side, Everton lost Yerry Mina, they lost Connor Cody in the summer. And for him to start, and I think he started 20 games so far this season, he's had a phenomenal start to the season. Shouldn't be too disheartened because he got bullied off the ball by Erling Haaland. We've seen better defenders happen to it already. I think we saw Lewis Dunk last season, who got bullied off the ball by Haaland. Just brush it off because he's been performed fantastically well, this season. And I think, it can happen. So don't worry too much for him. But I think I just want to give a quick shout out to Jeremy Doku, because despite the fact that Man City didn't have a great 70 minutes, every time he got the ball, he looked the most exciting player on the pitch. And the fact that in a treble-winning side, managed under Pep Guardiola, that Doku is still the one who looks like he's going to unlock a defence more than any other player on the pitch, I think it's credit to his qualities and his potential going forward.
Yeah, still so young, I think, which we forget at times. He's only, I think, 20, 21, and he really carries on and takes the game by the scruff of its neck, even if things are looking a bit flat and a bit slow. He's always a really, really good outlet for them. And I don't think he particularly had much support from Ake in this game playing at left back. He did have that left side all to himself. And he is a really good player to have at times. The way that City play, obviously, they want to pass the ball around very quickly in those areas and get a pass in behind that defence in those half spaces to look for a pullback. Whereas when you have someone like Doku, you don't need to rely on other players to make those passes and make those runs. He'll just pick up the ball and do it himself, which is something that they have probably lacked sort of since Mahrez left. He's been a really, really good replacement, a really true winger, unlike the sort of other players we see play out wide, Grealish, Foden, Bernardo Silva. Very different, and a really, really good outlet, and someone who you can only imagine is just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, he's such a non-Pep Guardiola kind of player that it's kind of surprising to see that, one, the fact that City bought him in the first place, but two, to see how well he's doing. And I think, the sky's the limit if he can find that final product, not necessarily putting a ball across boxes for the sake of it, but trying to pick out a man and doing consistently. He is definitely going to be the future for Manchester City. And I think also Savio is going to join from Girona. He's going to be another one for them. So I think Man City going forward will be absolutely fine. Then finally, we got Wolves 0, Brentford 2. And we have to start with our boy, Matheus Cunha, as we've been raving about him all season. But he picked up a bit of an injury, and how big a blow is that going to be for Wolves?
Yeah, it's such a shame to see because he has been performing so well. And I think the only sort of, not silver lining, but if Hwang wasn't coming back from the Asia Cup, I think there would be a bit of a worry. But now they have Sarabia playing fairly well as well. You could probably imagine it'll be Hwang leading the line up front, with Neto and Sarabia probably behind him. And then Bellegarde, who we did see in this game coming off the bench, maybe could be starting at striker while Hwang sort of integrates back into the team. Not too sure, but Cunha out is such a massive loss, and it's such a shame for him because it seems like he has really sort of found his best form since he was in the Bundesliga, and it's been really, really good to see him get some recognition this season. The previous season played well and he carries the ball really well, passed the ball really well, but wasn't maybe getting the numbers, and this season we have definitely seen that he's scoring goals, he's getting assists, and hopefully it's not too serious of an injury because I'd love to see him come back as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But as soon as he went off, it did look like it was going to be Brentford's day because Wolves just lacked a bit of cutting edge in that final third, and Brentford were able to make the most of it. This time, however, from a cross from Reguilon, who I actually think has done fantastically well since he's been loaned from Spurs, obviously previously at Man United on loan. He's one where he's on the set pieces, and to replace Rico Henry, who's such an outlet for Brentford on that left-hand side, and to do it almost seamlessly is, I think, a credit to him. He's actually quite a good player, which we quite underrate. But I think, the fact that Norgard was able to find the ball 3 yards from goal, completely unchallenged, again, defending, I think it was a poor one from Wolves' perspective. But then, of course, that man, Ivan Toney, back into the side, back in form, scoring goals, lovely finish, and where do you think Brentford can do now? Because they're obviously struggling without Ivan Toney. Now that Ivan Toney's in the side, I think Brian Mbeumo is only a couple of weeks away from being fully fit as well. The side, maybe they're mid-table at the moment. Could they potentially push for top 10?
Yeah, it felt like a much-needed win, I think, this game. Brentford were creeping a little bit lower in the table, getting slowly closer to that relegation zone. But I think, as you've said, Toney coming back into the side, Reguilon playing at left wing back as opposed to Lewis Potter, who I think is a fantastic young player, just doesn't fit wing back. He is a natural winger or someone who's going to play behind the striker. Having a few of these players coming back, as you've said, and Mbeumo, they can certainly press on and they do have the quality to do so. I don't think their position in the table and the points they've accumulated so far is reflective of the quality that they have in their squad and the quality of the manager they have in Thomas Frank.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a case of without Ivan Toney, with your main goal scorer, you're always going to struggle in the side. But it's quite funny. I thought quite interesting was they only had 28% possession. Just goes to show that, with all the tiki-taka and playing out from the back, there are still sides who will just go along, play the percentage football, and, are happy to concede the ball. And I think it's refreshing to see because it's nice to see not every single team play exactly the same way. So those are all the games on this week. Do you want to just quickly give me your Crystal Palace versus Chelsea prediction, as that is going on in an hour's time as we're recording, but by the time this video goes out tomorrow, you guys will have seen what happened. What are your predictions for that game, Toby?
Let's go for a Crystal Palace park the bus, Chelsea unable to break it, and let's go for a very boring 0-0. What about yourself, Mev?
Oh God, that isn't... Thankfully, I got other things to be doing tonight, so I won't be watching it. So if it's a 0-0, I don't mind. But I think on the back of what was a terrible 2 weeks ago, losing to Wolves and Liverpool, then beating Aston Villa in the FA Cup in midweek. Surely there's got to be some sort of bounce back. I've just seen the lineups, and it's the same lineup that Chelsea played against Aston Villa. Just, however, there's no Badiashile, and it's Thiago Silva. But Crystal Palace have no Eze or Elise. I am going to go for a 2-1 Chelsea, because I think they'll do all right this game, and I think they'll probably end up losing to Man City on the weekend. I think that's about fair. Yeah. Well, they're mid-table, so it doesn't really matter what they do anyway. Yeah, but anyway, that's it for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. Answer the questionnaire. Let us know what you think of the podcast. I've been Mevin. That's been Toby. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next one.